Hello and welcome to Chandoo.org. In this video, we are going to learn how to build a VBA macro to split a large report style Excel file into multiple worksheets. Now, this is not a very common thing, but I find that from time to time we get stuck with large report formats like this that are exported from either legacy systems or from uncooperative systems or what may be the case, and you may want to extract data out of this into individual spreadsheets or into a tabular fashion or whatever may be the case. So this is actually inspired from an email that I got from one of my customers, and I thought I will turn this into a video lesson on how to do VBA coding. Along way you can learn some interesting techniques and ideas. The original file that my client sent me had about 7,000 rows, and when it was split it went into about 187 worksheets. But in this case I have made up some random data that has about 700 rows or maybe 614 rows and might go into about 12 different worksheets. So it's not big, but at the same time it is not so trivial that you can manually do it. So this is where the power of VBA really comes handy. Before we actually get into the VBA coding work, I want to highlight a couple of other alternatives that you can try depending on the situation. Let's just say you are getting some sort of not so hideous format data from a reporting system and you would like to at least clean it up and turn it into a small table. In that case, you don't need VBA, you can use Power Query to do that. When I said not so hideous, as you could clearly see, there is some data that is very tricky to extract from here through normal formulas. For example, if you see, the category of the product is on the top in a merged cell, and we would like to extract this and kind of put it against all the items here, so we can kind of relate that these are all in the Lego toys and these are Barbie dolls. So that's one. The second thing is some of these column numbers are actually merged cells, so 2 columns here and 3 columns there. And the third thing is there is also a superfluous subtotal row in between that we would like to ideally delete from the data. So all of these are data cleanup tasks, and if you just want to delete all of these and turn this into a nice table format with an extra column for the category, then you don't need VBA, you can use Power Query, and I will use one of my future videos to tell you how to do that, but feel free to give it a try from the download example. The second thing is, let's just say you use Power Query and turn it into your normal table. Then you want to extract this into separate worksheets. What you could also do is you can set up a pivot table, use that particular field as a report filter, and use the report filter pages feature to automatically generate multiple pages of individual pivot reports that provide similar answer. But both of these approaches are not 100% what the customer was asking, mainly because it's not enough that we split the multiple sheets. We would also like to automatically sort the data and apply some conditional formatting where the items have a margin of less than 10% or $200 should be highlighted, and the worksheet names should be consistently given. So for this purpose, I find that using VBA is a handy interesting challenge, or likely looking for skills or ideas to develop your VBA coding skills. This is a very good project. So let's get into the VBA thingy. What we will be doing in this video is we will build a VBA macro to split that into multiple worksheets. As a bonus, we will also write a macro to delete all the splitted sheets. So if you would like to start over, you would just click that button. It will keep the original worksheets, but it will delete all the splitted worksheets so that you can go and do them again. So the first thing that we will do is make sure this file is saved as an XLSM or one of those other formats through which you can have both VBA code and Excel structures in place. So if you have just Excel data, then you can save it as. Chances are you would have downloaded a copy of this file through the description or the cards on the video, so you don't need to save that. So let's get into the coding part of our split Excel file to many sheets problem. We can access the Visual Basic Editor by right-clicking on the Data tab and View Code. This will open up the editor. The first thing that you want to do is insert a module. I've already done that, so there is an empty module where all our code shall go. Now, if you are just doing some really simple rudimentary stuff with VBA, you can straight away start coding and kind of improvise it from there on. But this seems like a little more complicated than that. So let's go and collect our thoughts on what needs to happen, and then we will do that in the Visual Basic Editor. One easy way to do that is if you were to do this job manually, what are the steps needed? Now you can also record a macro while you're doing those manual steps, but because this is actually a repetitive process, that means for each product we need to copy all of this data and then do the formatting and sorting and whatnot. It's not really efficient to run a macro recorder and learn from it. We will use macro recorder at some point, but for now, let's use a different approach, which is just do the manual actions, observe what we are doing, and then learn from that. So we will go to the very first step is we need to go to the top left cell. So in this case, this happens to be B7. You might think we are actually selecting B to P7, but reality is only B7 is selected because it's a merged cell. The selection spans that entire area. So here from B7, if we use Control-Shift down arrow, you will effectively select all the items for that particular group of data. And you want to copy, Control-C, go to a new worksheet and paste here as values. Okay, you can also paste the whole thing. It's up to you how you want to do this. I prefer to paste it as values. And then we just want to select the top line, do some formatting, apply filters, and then apply sort order and conditional formatting. But the critical steps are from the cell that has a product, we want to use Control-Shift down arrow to select everything and then copy and paste it into a new worksheet. That's the first step. How do you go from one product to another? So once you finish selecting and doing your business, imagine you are here. So you would have reached that point at that end of the process. From here, you need to go down 2 steps, 1 and 2, to access the next product, and then you want to repeat the same process, which is Control-Shift down arrow to select the items, copy and paste. So that's what we will do. Our point of focus will be B7 initially, and then it will change every time this program, this loop runs, it will go down further. We could imagine the B7 cell containing the current product, right? It is Lego Toys, and that's the name that we will use when we insert a sheet. The sheet name will also be Lego Toys. Then next worksheet name will be Barbie dolls and Spider-Man figures and whatnot. So that's what we will, that is the idea that we will go with. We'll go to the Visual Basic Editor here. Let me just start writing the code. We will start by saying option explicit. This will enforce that any variables that you are using must be declared. This way we don't make any typing mistakes or other types of silly errors that could happen when you are programming in Visual Basic. And we will create a sub, which is a short for macro. I think we are in the wrong place here. Let's access the module 1 and place the code there. Option explicit sub split. This is what I'm going to call this, and insert the subroutine. You can add comments and whatnot at a later stage. For now, we will just focus on building this. We will have a variable that holds the current item in question, which will be B7 when you start. So we will call this as C product, a short for current product, as a string. And we will also create one more range my range as range. We'll start by setting my range to range B7. From B7, we want to access everything, all of this data, that entire range, however many cells are there. So there is one way to access all these cells. It's current region. What happens is if you select B7 and press Ctrl Shift 8, Excel would automatically select the entire range of cells that are together. So even though column B is blank every now and then, Excel sees that, oh, there is continuous data here, I'm going to select everything. So this is current region. We can access that by saying current region, and that will go into my range. And C product would be the very first cell in this. So my range cells 1 1. That would be first row, first column value. So that will be your Lego Toys 001. All right, that's the C product. And then we will now write a loop that keeps on running as long as the C product has some value. So do while length of C product is greater than 1 loop. What this does is anything that you put inside will keep running as long as C product contains a value of length that is greater than 1. You could also double check against blank spaces or something. This is pretty much simpler way of doing that. And inside this loop, we will now write the code that will help us copy the values from C7, go up to here, copy that, and do all of that. This is where we have done the manual process. We just now need to replicate that and get it. So what we will do is we already have my range that is pointing to B7 and the C product telling me what is the name of the cells. So C product is a string, so it will just contain the Lego Toys. And we will we'll start by writing, creating another variable that kind of holds the number of rows to copy and then the starting cell pointer. So we will create those variables here. Starting cell, it's not necessary to have such big variable names, but SL for starting cell, and row size, I think I'll call this as copy size as long. You can also just say integer and assume that might work, but just to be safe. So we'll first set the SL. SL would be the starting cell, which will be I think initially before the loop begins, we will set SL as set SL is my range cells 1 1. Okay. We may also need, because we will be inserting a new worksheet and pasting data over there, we need to have a pointer to the current worksheet as well as another variable to hold the new worksheet, so that we can switch back and forth between these worksheets as needed. So I'll create those variables as well. Dim data DWS, that is data worksheet, as worksheet. CWS, that would be the current worksheet, as worksheet. Set DWS as active sheet. So currently when your macro begins, you will be in the data worksheet, so that would be the DWS. CWS is something that will change inside the loop. So those are the variables. We'll now go and set up the SL set. Oh, sorry, SL is already set, which will point me to the very first cell. So now copy size would be the size of amount of rows to copy. So we will calculate this as range. First pointer would be SL, and then SL dot end XL down. this end of Excel down corresponds to the control shift down arrow that we did when we were doing manually. So this whole thing will give us a range that is equal to the amount of data that we want to copy, and then we will just say rows dot count to count how many rows we are copying. Okay, we can then we now know how many rows to copy. We will then just say that's the range dot copy. So this will now go and sit in the clipboard. We will then say set CWS as sheets dot add. This will add a new worksheet and then set it into the CWS current worksheet. And let's see if there is a okay, we don't need to use any of that. And then what we will do is CWS dot where do you want to paste. So this is where if you observe here, we're not directly pasting at A1, we are leaving a couple of cells blank, so maybe B3 is a good option. So we can just say CWS cells, B would be third row, second column, paste. All right, we can test it. So far this is how usually when you're writing a VBA macro, you kind of write a bunch of code and then you test it. And now if you test this will obviously go into an infinite loop because the C product has not been changed, so it will always be running. So what I will do is I'll comment out the loop portion. So this only runs one, it will only run once, and then we will test this. We'll see if we have actually made any other mistakes, or it will just add and paste the data there. So we'll go here and I'll just set the focus for both of these windows so that you can see everything. We'll look here and then run this code. So obviously this is why the cells 32.paste was not working, and I kind of suspected as much. So it doesn't want to paste there. What I will do is I will use a different operator here, range B3 dot paste. Hopefully that should work. We will delete this one and go back here and paste. Doesn't still like. Let me go and examine what's happening here. Okay, obviously I'm wrong. There is no such function as paste. It is paste special. This is why that thing was not even coming up, and we will just paste Excel paste all for now. We will then change this later. And let's try this again. Hopefully third time's the charm. So it did paste. As you could clearly see, there was a couple of mistakes that we did, which is we were only copying downwards, so we were not copying what's on the side. So that was the number one problem, and then it did paste from B3. So we need to now change our macro code so that it grabs everything. Now if you observe in the manual mode, when we were doing, we didn't select all these columns. We just clicked on B7, and because it's a merged cell, Excel has selected everything. So I'm only pressing Control Shift down arrow to grab everything. But the macro sees this differently. The macro is only seeing this portion and it is copying down, and it is somehow able to unmerge and get me that data like that. So we need to this is one reason why many VBA developers hate merged cells, because they kind of play havoc with everything in their code. So let's go and change that. We will add another just as we have copy size, we will add another variable called call count as integer. This is a fairly reasonable assumption to have that as an integer, and set call count as my range columns count. So this will give me the number of columns that are there, and then we will simply just say from here you go down, and then you also offset to the In fact, because we have already calculated copy size, we can just offset everything, copy size in the rows, and then call count in columns. So number of rows to copy, number of columns to copy, just offset everything and then do it. So let's try this one and see what happens. So it does copy, it gives you everything, but here is the tricky part. It is also copying the subtotals. And you might notice something funny going on here, which is we thought we only copied this much, but it has actually selected all these extra columns. Now, what do you think is really happening here? This is counting the columns in a different way. So for some reason, our VBA is seeing that the active range has 30 columns, whereas it doesn't really have 30 columns. It has only 10 columns. So what's happening here is when it is counted, it counted as this many columns. So that would be, it's not 10 actually, let's just say so it's 15 columns here, right? Because there's some columns that have merged cells and whatnot. So it does count 15 columns, but then when it is offsetting, it'll just think this entire cell as one, so it'll offset 15 more times from here, and that's why it is grabbing all those extra columns. This is not necessarily a problem because there's nothing in those columns, but let's just fix that by doing the right thing, which is if you offset from S cell both copy size and call count, then Excel will offset both this direction and that direction. So instead, if you offset in 2 stages, so that means we just offset copy size first and then offset by comma column count. So that means go to there is no rows to offset, just columns. That might actually work. This is also another reason why those merged cells are a pain to work with. And now you can see that it has done its work beautifully, except there is an extra column getting copied and extra row getting copied. Why do you think this is happening? This is because when you are offsetting, you need to always offset one less, that otherwise it will, because if you want to copy 10 rows, but if you offset 10, then that row and then 10 more will get copied. So that's why you get 11. Same happens for columns. You can just use a -1 in both cases, and that would solve that problem. So so this is so far it is working well. We have been able to establish what is there to copy and paste it into the new worksheet. So we can now loop it and it would work beautifully. The only thing that we need to make sure is we need to move the S cell every time. So we will just do that. Set S cell, and then what we will do is we have already copied this much, and then the S cell would be the very next row. So S cell offset copy size +1 dot. So what this does is, if you observe, initially that would be the S cell B7. You might think this entire thing is S cell, but just B7 is S cell. And copy size is this many rows. So when you offset copy size, you will not just go to this row, but you will go all the way here, because this row is already counted. So it will go one extra and it will get up to subtotal. Now from here, if you offset one more, you will get to Barbie dolls. So that's what happens to the cell. It goes to the next one, and then C product can be set as by S cell dot value. Okay, so we offset and then just set the C product to that. Then this loop can continue. Now whenever you are writing do while loops, for loop is a different thing. Usually for loops will terminate after 10 times or 15 times, so whatever is the criteria. But do while loops are potentially always going to infinite loops if you are not conscious and make sure that you're doing the right things. So I'm confident that we have done the right thing. Let's go and run this and then see how this will work. If it doesn't work, then we will have to come back and check the problem. So I'll just save the file and then we will run it. doing a lot of flickers, but it seems to have done the split in a beautiful fashion. There are 18 sheets and this one contains streetcars, farm, Pickley, board games and whatnot, and Lego toys. There are not 18 sheets, I think there's only 12, but it starts from sheet 7. So at this point we were able to split the data into one subset, but after each split we must also do the sorting, conditional formatting and naming worksheets steps. So those are remaining. This is it might seem more complicated, but we have done the biggest job already, so doing those other jobs is fairly straightforward. What I will do is I will delete all these worksheets so that we have a base level data, and then we can add those steps and then split again and do it. What I will do this time is we will just copy one set of data, paste it in B3. So this is what the macro is giving us, right? This is what we are getting. Now let's apply a macro recorder so that we can understand what kind of code will be useful for sorting and applying conditional formatting. So we'll record a macro. This is just to test sort CF, and then what we will do is we will make this column wide enough and adjust that row height. So these are simple steps, and then we will select everything, Control Shift L to enable filters, and let me just see, sort the data by I think margin. So we will just sort by largest to smallest. Okay, I think Excel is not happy to sort, mainly because there are some merged cells. So this is why it doesn't want to sort. What I will do is we will stop the recorder. We will have to do a different thing this time. We'll record the macro again, sort copy sort CF. So we'll do all the three steps. We got this data, so we'll copy this, insert a new worksheet, go to B3, just paste special, and we will select values and formats. Where is this? Okay, so this way the merged cells won't be there, they're gone, and then apply the necessary steps. Control B for making that bold, and all of this needs to have some sort of borders, otherwise it might look a little bit ugly. Again, all of this is not necessary, but you learn the important VBA coding skills, and you might be able to write it directly, but usually just working with recorder is a great help, because that way you will learn what are the objects that you need to access and what is the code necessary to write. It produces a lot of garbage as well, so you may have to trim that, which is what I'm going to show you in this step. So we apply the borders. We will select this bit. Let's add some really simple thing. We could probably live with a merged cell on the top, and now we can do our sort largest to smallest on that. I'm not even happy with these extra columns, so I may want to just delete them, but we will live with them for now. And then the next step is conditional formatting. For that, what we will do is we will select everything and write the conditional formatting rule, new rule. We will apply a formula based rule. The formula rule is margin greater than less than 200 pounds or $200, or margin percentage less than 10%. So, or margin is in column O, so it will be $O5 less than 200, or $P5 less than 10. Okay, so look at these two and then apply some sort of formatting. We will just say It needs to be highlighted, and it will highlight all the items that have low margin by either dollar amount or that. Then we will disable the filters. So this is the desired thing that we want. You could even set up print areas or whatnot, and we'll stop the recorder. And now let's go and see the code that it has produced. Usually this code is bound to be like pages long, as you could see here. There is a lot of garbage in this, and this makes it impossible for us to work with, but we can use this to our advantage. For example, the paste special that we were using is Excel all. We could just use this particular paste special here. So we are saying Excel paste all. Instead we will simply say that. Okay, paste values and number, operation done, skip blanks false, transpose false. In fact, I would argue that none of these are necessary, and it will just be the same if you don't specify. And then the next thing is, for each of those pastings that are already done, we will need to now go and do the necessary steps. So I think there is a bit that there is applying borders. So this is a selection borders. That's what it is doing. Let's skip the border part for now. You can always go back and apply. And range B4 to. So this is doing the part where we are doing header formatting, right? And you could argue that this is actually doing a lot of selections and that, but it will always be the B to P and then 4 to 4. Only thing is that endpoint will change based on the call count, but because we are starting from B3, it will always be B3 onwards or B4 onwards. So we will do this. We will say range B3, that range B3 dot offset call count -1. So that will go up to P3 basically. Dot interior. Okay, so instead of saying all of this, we would simply need to use that interior there with, and that's gonna just do the solid bow pattern theme color accent 2. I think we are doing the other way around, so we'll probably just use B4 and B4 and I'll copy this where it says this. I'll just paste that. So that's for the B4 and this is for B3, and I'll just say true. That'll be that. And so at this stage, what we are doing is we are pasting values on number formats, and then B4, the fourth row will be doing the interior orange color formatting, and the third row will be doing slightly duller or orange color formatting along with this. I want to make sure. Oh yeah, so these bits are missing. Again, a lot of these steps are not necessary. If you're not really setting them, you could just ignore and it will still work. But there is no harm in just leaving them there. So this is doing 2 steps. It might seem quite a bit to just do the 2 steps, but that color and that color and that merging, that's what we've done. Now let's go and see how the sorting will work, because that might be more useful than any of these steps. So we will these are the steps. Autofilter, key, and then apply the sort. So that's the sorting, and I'll copy this. Oops, Control Z, copy, and we'll come here, we'll paste it. I'll just move some of these inside, and it's saying worksheet sheet 1 the autofilter, so we don't need to use any of this. We can just say CWS because we already have that. We'll clear the autofilter, and we'll just say CWS autofilter, add key. 04 is perfectly fine. That means just selecting that column, and then CWS autofilter sort, and that's it. Apply will just sort. So once the sorting is done, then we are doing the conditional format, which is this one, and so we'll just select that and paste it here. So it is using selection as a concept, but basically what the selection corresponds to would be so B3 and B4 are the headers, and then from B5 onwards we need to go and grab everything. This is the range that needs to have conditional formatting applied to it. So B5 and up to column P, and how many other rows that needs to be there. So the number of rows that needs to be there would be 2 less than the copy size. In fact, 3 if you are using offset, but 2 less than the copy size. So we will just say we'll create a variable outside CF range as range, and then we'll set up the range first. Set CF range as range B3 sorry, it needs to be from B5, so we'll just say B5 directly. B5 offset copy size -3 call count -1. So this will give you a range to which the conditional formatting needs to be applied, and then we'll just say CF range dot this, and then these conditions are all right. They're using relative mixed style referencing already, so they will work. And CF range and that's it. It's a good idea to search for selections whenever you copy the CF range. Whenever you copy the recorded macro code, because there would be lots of selections, and it's a good idea to just remove that, because that will be a problem. So all of this is done, and because we are using autofilters and everything, the active sheet might be actually the CWS and no longer the DWS. So at the end of the loop, before you go back, you need to activate DWS. So you can either do it here or you can do it at the beginning. I'll just do it at the beginning, that way it'll be easier. DWS.activate, so that any copying or anything is happening from the DWS data worksheet. All right, so this is that. Now let's save this. Again, we will test this, and then we will see. Now if I am right, it should be copying everything and pasting it there and sorting and applying conditional formats, but not the border formatting. I find the border formatting to be trivial, so I will just ignore that for now. We'll come back to that in the download file. So let's go and see everything. And run this. So save and run. Obviously we get an error. This is gonna happen all the time. So what does it want to do? So when we are in B3, maybe I will stop this and we will change the code slightly. I'll copy here. Okay, so that will first merge the cells, and then we don't need any of this. We will just do that. Let's try this again. Sometimes, you know, it's always really crazy, especially if you're porting the code from macro recorder to the actual projects like this, and you don't really know where the error is coming. Debug. So, all right, it doesn't really like this. I think it might be because the current selection here is this range, so the autofilter might be applying to that entire thing, including the centered cell on the top. So we may have to stop here and reset. I'll just pause the recording so I can fix that code. Okay, so the missing bit was supposed to be enabling the autofilter on the header range before we can even do that. So I did that. I'm also changing the code a little bit, so we are not doing the thing for the entire header range but just to the B3. This way, if you observe when we tested that, we had some extra cells getting shaded here, so that problem should not happen. So I'll delete this and let's try again. And run. Cool, that seems to work, and we got the worksheets with the necessary highlighting done, and of course there's still some problems with respect to column sizing. What I would have ideally loved to do is column C through P auto fit, so this is something that I will add, and there seems to be a lot of zeros as well, which is not desirable. But if you can merge across, that would solve those problems and fix that. So this is how you can split data across multiple worksheets. The last bit that is remaining is renaming the worksheets. So we will do that first, and then I will provide you a downloadable worksheet where the missing pieces of the code will be available to you. So let's go and name the worksheets before we. So we will say cws.name because that's the current worksheet will be. So what we could do is, rather than using the product name as it is, we could follow some sort of a pattern like 001 hyphen product name, 002 hyphen product name. That way it's easy for us to identify all those worksheets and delete them as well. So we do need a running number. So we will call this as lcount as integer, that's the loop counter, and we will start by saying lcount is equal to 1. Okay, so we will then say cws.name would be format lcount 000. That will give it the lcount in 3-digit format, 001, 002, like that, ampersand hyphen, and then we can just take the entire product name and put it there. But because the product names could be very long and the worksheet names cannot be that long, and also product names can contain some special characters which may not be allowed in the worksheet names, so it's a good idea to just take the left 5 letters or 10 letters. So left of C product 6 letters. So this way we will get a unique worksheet name as well, and that should pretty much do what we want. We'll save this and run it, and we will get all these nice little beautiful worksheets with the proper names. Oh, they're all called 001 because we have not been incrementing the L count in the loop. So once this is done, L count is equal to L count plus 1. All right. This name is already taken. Debug. Okay, stop. I think I didn't delete all the worksheets. This is why that's happening. Okay, let's try again. Save. Yeah, so we get these things. There were two more on this side which we missed last time, and they're all there. We can now go and get the worksheets. You can also identify them to delete. So I will show you how to delete all these worksheets rather than manually doing. That will be the last piece of the code that we write in this video. Sub delete delete sheets, and so dig ws as worksheet. For ws in sheets, sorry, for each ws in sheets, next ws. And what we want to do is we just want to see if the worksheet name is like the pattern that we have defined, which would be 3 digits hyphen and then something else. So if ws.name like hash hash hash, that would be 3 digits hyphen star anything, then and if ws.delete. Okay, it might even show a prompt. So for this way, what we could do is application dot screen updating equal to false, application dot display alerts is equal to false, and we'll just oops, we'll enable them after the macro is done. True, true. Let's test this guy out, and then oops, worksheet needs to be worksheet. Okay, so those worksheets are all gone now, and we can create and delete them. So the last thing, I did say the last thing earlier, but this is really the last thing I promise, is to just add a couple of buttons which will trigger the macro as well as run the code. So I will use a nice little fancy blue button for that, and edit text, split sheets, will increase the font size and center align this guy, and assign a macro which would be split macro, and we'll copy this button, paste it further down, and change the formatting, delete, and this one would need to be assigned a macro delete sheets. Okay, so both of these are there. Because we have a delete sheet, whenever you are splitting, it's a good idea to first delete things that are already being split. So you can add a delete step at the start of splitting, which will be before we begin the loop. Delete sheets. What is it called? Delete sheets. Did I spell it? Oh, needs to be delete, not delete. Okay. And assign macro delete sheets. So now you don't need to use Visual Basic Editor to run the macro. You can just click on split sheets. It will create the splitted sheets for you here. You can go back and click on delete, and they will all be gone. So that's it. This is how you can split an Excel file into many sheets. Of course, we didn't really do everything that we wanted. For example, we haven't done border formatting or even auto fitting the column widths, but those are fairly trivial steps that you could maybe take up as a challenge and do it yourself. If you're getting stuck, download the file, and there would be the macro code with those things as well. Thank you so much for watching. I know this has been a long one, But I hope you found this particular Visual Basic Coding project fairly useful and interesting. And if you like this, please share this with your colleagues or friends, and do leave a comment to tell me what you enjoyed most. Thanks. Bye bye.